Hi, my name is Mackenzie Lake. Welcome to the first episode of my podcast, Let's Talk About War. Today we are going to discuss the first stage of Operation Overlord, which was Operation Neptune. Operation Neptune, or the Normandy landings, were the first step to get into France and the rest of Europe. The landing was originally supposed to take place 2 weeks before it did on the 6th of June 1944. The reason for the delay of the attack was the bad weather. This prevented the landing crafts from being able to land troops on the beach. Operation Neptune and Operation Overlord have a lot of historical value, but today we will be talking about the fatal flaws that came with each of the battles. The first major flaw of the Operation Neptune was the bombing campaign prior to June 6, 1944. The bombing campaign had critical targets that it was meant to hit, one being the beachheads and the bunkers that were on them, the second being the artillery fields behind the beachhead. The Allied bombers completely missed the targets on the beachhead and only hit the artillery fields in behind. This caused the German bunkers to be fully intact when the Allies landed early in the morning. The second fatal flaw was the design of the boats that were used during the landing. The landing craft opened from the front, which gave the soldiers no other choice but to run out onto the beach, frontward into the German machine gun fire. This was a fatal flaw in the design of the landing craft. In production, they thought that the front opening craft would be easier for the Allied soldiers to get out. But in reality, it just gave the German machine gun nests an area to fire, which funneled the troops out in the same direction so the German machine gun didn't have to move its sight. Due to this, some of the Allied soldiers went over the sides of the craft and ended up drowning due to the sheer weight that they were carrying. This was a major problem in the design of the craft, which was another one of the fatal flaws. During the D-Day landings in Operation Neptune, there were 209,000 Allied casualties, resulting in 87,000 deaths. This is very significant of the time period that the battles took place in. During that time, the war effort was basically just throwing men at the issues. If you lost the battle, you just go in next time with more people. More people ended up winning the battles, and they just kept using this sequence. With this way of battle continuing to work, the Allies thought it was a great idea to keep throwing men at issues. When 30,000 men couldn't do it, you send 100,000 next time. It gets the job done. But with all those casualties, with those 130,000 people that you would have sent, 60,000 of them would have been casualties or died. The third fatal flaw from this battle wasn't something that the Americans could control. The Germans did a very good job of positioning their machine gun nests in strategic points along the beach to ensure that they got maximum kills, or casualties, taking the Americans out of the war. As I mentioned previously, there was 209,000 casualties during Operation Neptune. Now, imagine you lost 80,000 soldiers during a battle today. There would be outrage, outcry, and calls for political figures to step out of office. Now, today's wars are fought more strategically. The military now uses Humvees, tanks, and other armored support as well as air cover to provide support to the soldiers on the ground. When the soldiers are in trouble on the ground, they call in artillery strikes or airstrikes to help them get out of a tough situation. When D-Day happened in 1944, there was airstrikes, there was artillery, but it just wasn't used. The reason for this is unknown, as they had battleships and aircraft carriers waiting in the English Channel. They could have used the air support to bomb the beaches and bomb the bunkers and take out the German machine gun positions that were threatening their men. Today, losing 80,000 men would be like losing the entire Canadian Armed Forces as well as the reserves. That is an unfathomable amount of casualties and deaths during war. Another massive factor of the war is civilian deaths. During Operation Neptune, prior to Operation Neptune, there were a total of 39,000. There were 19,000 civilians killed in pre-invasion bombings. This is the artillery fields and the towns they hit when they missed the artillery fields. During the invasion, there were 19,890 killed, which is just ridiculous. At taking a beach filled with German soldiers, you would end up killing 20,000 civilians. To put that in context, there is 6,000 people living in Lynn Valley. The deaths of the 39,000 civilians would be comparable to all of Lynn Valley being killed 6 times over. That number is just completely staggering. Imagine all of those people dying and no one caring. Today we reflect on the battles of the past and wonder, why were they such bloodshed massacres? It's because no one had regard for human life back then. Boys were bred to work the farms, kids were bred to work and not to feel like we do today. I want to end today's episode with a question to you, the viewers. What would you do? How would you react if you were a leader and you lost that many people in the heat of battle? And with all that bloodshed, how would you react with all that blood on your hands? Hi, my name is Mackenzie Lake. Welcome to the first episode of my podcast, Let's Talk About War. Today we are going to discuss the first stage of Operation Overlord, which was Operation Neptune. Operation Neptune, or the Normandy landings, were the first step to get into France and the rest of Europe. The landing was originally supposed to take place 2 weeks